Dun, 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 dun.
Little surf rock in there too. It's got that little
Absolutely.
surf
I
rock.
love that. There is a little bit of that surf master from the 60s type music, isn't there? That's
Yeah.
true.
Right.
Wipeout, I think, comes to mind. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Big 12 Mafia Show on the College Football Mafia Network. I'm your host, Nathan Bomber Brown, and with me are my partners in crime, and really we're becoming good friends. Got to plan that Las Vegas trip. We ought to try to do that this fall or something. Anyway, I've got WildUte and Moen in here. How you guys doing tonight?
Doing
Good.
How you doing? Living the dream on Tuesday.
Living the
There you
dream.
go.
It's appointment television. That's all I know. I appreciate everybody for being here. Tonight's actually a special show, and we really hope that everybody appreciates the quality work that went into it. We'll lean into some of the things in the comments at the end, but I want everybody to understand that all the stuff that goes out from WildUte University and all the videos and all the production that we put into our other special presentations, it is real, and it takes a lot of time and energy, and I hope everybody appreciates that tonight. It's going to be fun. I hope people are interactive with us, and at the end it'll be a lot of pointing fingers, and we'll sort of see where we go from there. So I appreciate everybody being here tonight on the College Football Mafia Network. So I want to thank everybody for being here. Make sure you follow us all on Twitter. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube. Make sure you give us a thumbs up. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. Just hit that little icon when you come into the video. Really helps us, and it helps get the word out to more people that aren't necessarily seeing all of our normal weekly shows. And then the last thing, of course, I want everybody to make sure you turn on your notifications. That way you know when our show is on. And when we put out tweets, that's basically where we do most of our communication. And I appreciate everybody for participating in that. Also, I want to invite everybody to go to the comment section of the video, into the explanation for the video, and there's a Discord link, and join our Discord server. It's 24/7. College football and anything else anybody wants to talk about. We're almost about 100 members. I haven't looked recently, but it's a really lively area, and we invite everybody to do that. It's free. We get you right in, and it should be a lot of fun. All right, enough of the business. Before we dive into this presentation, I just want to see how everybody did this weekend. So how did you do this weekend, you?
I did great. Had a Kentucky Derby party, saw the horse race and everything, so I had a good old time.
How much money did you win? How much money did you win?
I lost $10 in horse race bets.
Oh,
it was
okay.
well worth it. It was a good time. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not a big spender in betting.
That's all right. How about you, Moen? How was your weekend?
My weekend was fine. I didn't bet on any horses, so
yeah,
I didn't have a party. I guess I had a party. I had some bourbon here. I drank some bourbon.
Okay, drink responsibly.
Georgia
Tech. Again, we want to invite everybody, if you're new to the channel and everybody says Georgia Tech, that's our drinking game word. And it's going to be that way for a while longer, I think. They're super involved with the ACC and everything that's going there. So if you hear Georgia Tech, take a swig, drink responsibly, and after the show, please do not drive. Or if you're driving while you're listening, don't drink. How about we go with that too? Before we do anything else, let's jump in and get some comments here. Right out of the gate, we've got Carrie Go Knowles with the $10 super chat. Carrie, we were just talking about you. Literally, I just mentioned you. And now, what was that, 3 minutes ago, guys? Anyway,
absolutely.
Carrie, you're a hero. We appreciate you being here, and you help us keep the lights on for sure. He says, the Big 12 Mafia Show, go Knowles. And I would shout that too.
He wants us to add a slash in between.
Oh, okay.
The
Big Splash 12 Mafia.
12
okay.
Mafia.
That's pretty brilliant. That's brilliant,
okay.
actually.
All right.
And I say we let him cook.
Let him cook.
Let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook. I said let him cook.
All-time great. That's an all-time great drop. Thank you very much, Moen, with your magical drop machine you got there and helping us out with the production of the show. Let's do some shout-outs really quick. Let's go Ryan Willie first. Hi, College Football Mafia. Good to see you, Ryan. Let's see here. Buckshot Kid. Oh, hey, at the College Football Mafia. Thank you very much. Good to see you, Buckshot. Joaquin Morales. Hey, College Football family, don't forget to smash that like button and let's go. Thank you very much, Joaquin. We appreciate your membership. Let's see here. Timothy Green, DS Tops, Bo Weevil. Bo Weevil, he's new to the show, maybe. Good to have you here, Bo Weevil. Nice to meet you. Go Clemson. We're starting to grow that Clemson party. Yeah, there's exciting things on the horizon for Clemson. Pretty exciting. The Big Lubbock, one of our members, says third. Is that right? Can you count that right? Let's see. We go 1, 2,
I'm not sure Big Lubbock was third. I
4,
think that he's
5,
like fifth,
6.
sixth.
Yeah, maybe he was drinking Georgia Tech a little bit early. Good to see you, Lubbock. Appreciate your membership. Mr. Monkey says, in the housing, why you guys always start around the time I'm eating? I don't have any idea how to answer
Eat
that.
and watch us.
Why
Watch
are you
it live.
why are you always eating around the time we're starting?
Exactly right. Mooncat. Let's see. Jeff Fuller in the house. Jeff Fuller, the master of the machine of all analysis going back many, many years. Good to have you here, Jeff. I think you're going to find this presentation very exciting.
Yeah, you will.
And I imagine some people are going to be cutting up some of these drops we're going to be putting in and putting them out on Twitter, because there's some really cool information. We invite everybody to stick around for that. So Jeff Fuller, great to see you here. Let's see here. We got Kerry Go Knowles again, says Judge Cooper gave the ACC a good what for today. Yeah, we can talk about that for a second. What do you guys think about what Cooper did today?
Go ahead, Mon.
I think he pretty much told North Carolina to go piss up a rope. And then he quoted a North Carolina case and said piss up a rope.
Right. It's a good way to put it.
Yep.
Yeah, very good way to put it. Let's see here. BR. Good to see you, BR. Been a minute. Go Pokes. That's immaculate for the new OSU wrestling coach. That's immaculate. Does immaculate do wrestling?
The Iowa coach left for Oklahoma State.
Yeah, okay. Well, go Pokes. Let's see here. Ryan Willie again, BR. I'm just trying to make sure I get as many of these shout-outs as possible.
Shout-outs.
Daniel Gygax, another one of our members. Good to see her, Daniel. He's an OG at this point, I think. Hi, everyone. I hope we don't have cheese slander from anyone here, unlike what happened with Greg. Do you guys? I didn't catch Greg's show.
I didn't catch that. Yeah, let us know what happened there.
Greg doesn't like cheese with his hamburgers.
Oh, yes, he doesn't like cheese.
It became a Juicy Lucy question.
Okay,
he wasn't a fan.
Okay, let's give that Greg drop in here. Let's get Greg's drop on that.
Oh!
The cheese slander.
That is the man, the machine, the original OG in the community. That would be Greg Pflugar on Pflug Empire, peek around the corner. Good to have you here, and thank you very much again for being a member, Daniel. DF Williams says, hi, everyone. Another member. West Virginia Earl. Hey, everyone. Jay Chapman. Oklahoma onion burgers are the greatest. Haven't had one, so I'd have to take his word for it. Let's see. Don in Kansas. Doing okay. Had a close call last night, though. Tornadoes after sunset are bad. Did you guys see that really scary lightning and the tornado was somewhere off in the distance? And you couldn't see it, but you heard it. It was absolutely frightening.
Saw the destruction too, so prayers out to the community.
Absolutely. Yeah, very much.
Impacted.
Thank you, Ute, for mentioning that. I appreciate that. Yeah, that's true. We need to keep them in mind. There's a lot of good people in the middle of this country that don't get a lot of attention. So many prayers. If you have an opportunity to donate or provide some time for a nonprofit for any of the things that are going on in support, I would recommend that, of course. Mr. Ed Wayner says, good evening. Good to have you here, Mr. Ed. Connor Johnson, representing Oregon State, says no immaculate tonight. Who's going to talk about the Pac-2?
Connor, some information for you, completely irrelevant. You're going to want to pay attention to this because it could impact Oregon State and Washington State dramatically. So, yeah, no immaculate tonight out here, but really something you're going to want to see.
And it's really important to Oregon State and Washington State. They should be watching this. If you have friends, get them on the show right now. They can watch it live with everybody else. Rock Chalk 94 says the ACC will cost $1 at the Dollar Tree after top brands leave. Yeah, boy.
Yeah, that's where we're going.
Yeah, I would say that's true. Dan Miter, another one of our members, says Georgia Tech is drinking along with the rest of the ACC till this is all settled. Yeah, I think that's probably true. Hummus Hero, Daniel Kopcha. Sorry, guys, I got to cruise through a few of these. Good to have you here, Steve-O. Time for some real data. There we go. That should have been a comment. Thank you
Let's
very much,
go.
Steve. It's great to see you here. And I think that about takes us to the end. Chad Bracey, another membership. Appreciate you being here, Chad. Cleveland Rocks. Moen, we are too old to ride Top Thrill 2 at CP, but it looks amazing. You've got to go. What is that?
At Cedar Point.
Cedar
Point in
Point.
Ohio. It's an amusement park.
Oh,
But
okay.
I've got a bad back, and I'm not riding that ride either. Maybe I'll take my knee.
I appreciate that very much. And last but not least, we'll end with Cougar Tracks. Good to have you here, Cougar Tracks. It's always good to have other BYU fans. We appreciate you sticking around, and you've been pretty consistent over the last several months, just dropping in. We appreciate and see you here tonight. Okay. There's really nothing to preface here. I'm going to actually turn some time over. Oh, we've got, let me get a couple more things. We got some super chats. Let's see here. Kerry Go Knowles, another super chat, says a fan on PATC called in and called Immaculate hot guy. Female FSU fan.
Immaculate's hot guy. Nice.
Wow.
Silver Fox.
Thank you very much, Kerry. We
Immaculate,
appreciate
if you're
the heads
listening
up.
out there, let that man cook.
We'll bring that up on Friday, I think. That'll
Did she
come
say
around.
hot guy or did she say Hawkeye?
Ooh, good
Now
question.
she's saying hot guy right here.
Hot guy, yes.
Hot guy.
That's funny, hot guy.
Thank you, Kerry.
And then Marcus Williams, a member here for
man.
2 months. We appreciate your loyalty, Marcus. Thank you for continuing to be a member of the channel. Your support and everybody else that's members really provide the background so that we have the access and the time to put together some of these presentations like this one tonight. Buckle up, get some potato chips, and just start listening to what's going on here, because there's a lot of good news and we hope everybody takes it to heart. All right, Ute, we've talked about you for months since you and I first
you got to
started.
read that man's. You got to read that man's note.
Oh, I apologize. I'm sorry. You're right. It said the 2 months. Thank you, Moen. I appreciate that. It won't go up there. There we go. I'd love Moen's take on the ACC crumbling. Go blue. All right.
The ACC is crumbling. That's my take. And I'm not saying the other things. So.
Go blue.
Go blue. All right. We've been around a long time, and we've been doing this year, Ute and I. But I think sometimes we forget that we actually have real lives, and we're all subject matter experts in different areas that come on the show quite often. Tonight is all about Ute and his analysis, so I'm going to give him a few minutes here to describe kind of what he does for a living and why what he's telling and explains to everybody tonight. Not telling you what to think, but providing you the data so that you can sit back, soak it in, and then make your own analysis down the road. So Ute, go ahead and take some time here and sort of preface what's going on.
Sure thing. We'll do the intro, and then I'll tell you guys where we're going, and then we'll show the analysis and what it means. This is important, really, really important, because ACC survival is based on a number at the end of the day. We know Florida State and Clemson are going to get out of the conference. We pay attention to the lawsuits and everything. It's fun, but at the end of the day, there's going to be a settlement. Very, very likely going to be a settlement. And what does the dollar amount need to be for other ACC schools to retain in the conference without jumping to other conferences, especially the Big 12? That's where we're going. That's the importance of this. It's a number. Okay. So my background a little bit, I've been in the finance industry for 15 years. I have a master's in finance from the University of Utah and other financial certifications. So it is my area of expertise. Love finance, love college football, and I love doing analytics for college football. Don't talk about that much, but really got a lot of background in this. And nobody has conducted an analysis like this. You're not going to see it anywhere else. This is the first time. This is what we're doing today. Okay. Number one, we're going to break out the ACC revenue or the viewership share. Told you about that last week on Friday, a little bit what that looks like per school. But the first part of this is like looking at the breakout of how much viewership share that Clemson and Florida State get. And then after that, we're going to break out the Big 12 media contract. We're going to look at the media contract and see in today's dollars, what that is worth today, the media contract for the Big 12. Next, we're going to go look at the ACC contract and see what that is worth in today's dollars. We're going to compare the Big 12 with the ACC to see which one is more valuable. And then we're going to adjust the ACC contract based on the viewership share loss of Florida State and Clemson and others. So that's where we're going to go on this journey. At the end of the day, we're going to see how much settlement money to break even for the remaining ACC teams with the Big 12. So a lot of information there. I know, just to highlight that, we're going to look into the numbers and everything. Along the way, Bomber, Moan, if there's anything that's confusing, if there's anything you want clarification on, please monitor the chat too. If there's anything folks have comments on, stop me, please, so we can just answer those and everything. We don't need to speed through this. There's a lot of numbers involved and everything, but we'll try to make it entertaining, and it's super, super important, valuable, okay?
You bet we'll do that.
You ready? You ready, guys?
I'm ready. I'm excited.
Let's
I've waited
do
for
it.
a long time.
Let's go.
You don't want a drum roll?
Oh, yeah, start the drum roll. Start the drum roll.
You want the window small or big, Ute?
Let's keep it like this.
Okay.
All right, Georgia Tech to everybody before we get going here.
There we go.
All right, ACC survival. It is a number. Okay. Here we go. Let's start out here. So we talked about this on Friday. What you're seeing in the illustration here is a breakdown of all the ACC viewership over the last 9 years, subtracting the COVID-19 year. So we're looking at the share of viewership that Clemson, Florida State, Miami, and others got over that 8-year time frame. Why that's important is we're seeing really how many eyeballs are on their games. This is based on Nielsen data. This is the raw data, no adjustments. It is what it is. This is what the numbers were over an 8-year extended time period, and it gives you the viewership share percentages here. So Clemson was on a mighty good run, Sunshine and everything else that went on, multiple titles. So of course, their viewership number over this 8-year time horizon is actually the best. It's higher than Florida State over this examination period. And this is from 2015 to 2023, folks, when you're looking at that. So when you're looking at the viewership share, really over that 8-year time frame, Clemson accounted for about 18% of all viewership in the ACC. Florida State accounted for roughly 16.78%, or 17% if you want to round up. Why this is important, though, this is cool and everything, but why it's important is actually going to be valuable when we're doing the analysis we're going to talk about, because we're going to adjust the ACC contract down by the share of viewership lost if schools leave. And that makes sense, too, because if Florida State and Clemson leave the conference, you no longer have those eyeballs, those brands, those viewership, those games. And so the ACC contract, if it exists in the future, would have to be adjusted down in value. That makes sense?
Yep.
All right, so look to the right side. So here are the tandems you want to pay attention to. So if you add Clemson and Florida State's viewership share, it amounts to roughly 35%, 34.8%. If you add Miami in with Clemson and Florida State, you get up to roughly 45% of all the ACC viewership over this time horizon. And if you throw North Carolina in too, then you get actually over 50% of all the ACC viewership over this 8-year time horizon we're looking at. So those numbers are important: 35%, 45%, 51%. So keep those in mind, because they will come into play in a bit. Let's move on here. Unless there's any questions, look from the chat too if there's any questions about that before we move on.
No, I think people are waiting on pins and needles to hear you.
All right, let's look at the value of the Big 12 contract and the payouts the Big 12 teams are going to be getting with one assumption. Okay, we have to make an assumption here, because we need to look at an apples to apples view of how much the contract could be worth compared to the ACC contract. So what you're seeing here is the actual Big 12 payouts from 2025, when the new Big 12 deal starts, that's next year, to 2030. And that's when the Big 12 deal ends. An assumption was made here. I made the assumption here, and it's a very reasonable assumption, that ESPN, Fox will want to continue doing business and showing Big 12 games. And if that happens, then the pay increase will be roughly 4.5% more every year, which is actually pretty dang conservative, given how media contracts have performed. So you'll see in red to the right side that the assumption is that the contract from 2030 increased by 4.5% in 2031. So the ESPN Fox payouts will move in 2030 from $35 million approximately per Big 12 school to around $37 million in 2031. Get that idea there. So, and then also looking at college football playoff money. the Big 12 gets roughly $12 million a year per school in college football playoff money. And so when you're breaking those numbers down, look in 2025, the Big 12 schools, each Big 12 school is roughly going to be getting $40 million in media-related payouts. That number is going to increase to 42 million in 2026, 43 million in 2027, and so on. You can see it in the total area, just the increase in payouts over time, everything. So that's something to note there. Okay. One of the big things that we need to do, though, in any analysis is look at the present value of a series of payouts. And so, because of inflation, an idea named time value of money, dollars tomorrow or into the future are worth less today than they are into the future. That is known as like the present value factor and everything. Present value dollars are worth more. Dollar today is worth more than a dollar tomorrow. That's the idea. So what's been done here is adding up all the total payouts of the Big 12 from 2025 to 2035 and looking at what's the today value of how much those payouts would be worth. It equates to roughly $400 million per school in the Big 12.
Okay.
So following me still, any questions at this point before we move forward?
No, let's get a super chat in here, though.
Let's do it.
Ryan Willie, $10, is also a member. Appreciate you being here, Ryan. Says Locked On Big 12 said that the bottom teams of every conference won't be able to afford the 20 and 30 million to pay players, destroying the Big 12. What do you think?
That's going to be tough. I mean, when you're looking at 20, 30 million to pay players, you see these Big 12 payouts. This is media related only. It's not ticket sales. It's media related money. But that's going to be really heavy on the Big 12 programs compared to the Power 2 programs, the SEC and the Big 10, because the payouts are triple these amounts. And so it's going to be heavy on the Big 12 programs. You're going to make it up, probably donations, booster donations and everything else. I don't think any Big 12 programs are going to take a back seat or bow out of the game, but it's going to make it tougher financially, 100%.
Absolutely. Moen, what do you think about that?
Yeah, we've still got to get there yet. There's so many proposals floating out there right now that we've got to see what happens. It's too vague right now.
Right.
We got to see what happens. But there is a question here, related to the presentation. You left out basketball units, which is significant for the Big 12.
Yeah, the units are variable. They're not guaranteed basketball units, so they're not in this. These are guaranteed payments.
And we're talking football.
We're talking about the value of the media contract here from ESPN and Fox every year. That's football mostly, 80% football, 20% basketball. And the college football playoff payout would be football related. So yeah, when you're looking at basketball units and everything, every different conference gets basketball units based on your performance in the regular season and your entry in the NCAA tournament, your wins. So that's not a fixed thing. That can change year over year, and it makes it impossible to actually project out. So really, that's not even in this analysis at all because there's no way to really predict it.
Let's get to a couple other comments and memberships here. We just had Shonsky, who became a Soldier member tonight. Good to have you, Shonsky. It's good to see you. Thank you for being here and being a member. And he's also gifted 5 memberships. Well, that's kind of crazy. So what goes on with those memberships, Moen?
Winner.
It means that Clint Moses, BR7062, Joaquin Morales, Clay Johansson, and DP were all gifted memberships. You now have access to all the membership options within our video library, as well as custom emotes and the ability to vote on members-only polls. Please make sure you thank Shonsky in the chat for those memberships if you received one.
And we thank you. Oh, sorry.
We thank you, Shonsky, for keeping the lights on here. And
didn't mean to interrupt you there, man. I also want to make sure everybody knows if you happen to receive a gift membership, we do encourage people to pay it forward, possibly give other gift memberships to people. We have new people coming on the channel all the time, and they don't get a chance to see all the locked behind videos, the member only videos that we created in our library. We encourage everybody to consider joining, just even for a month, to catch up on all the special videos that we put out. Coos Corner just put one out a few days ago. We appreciate Justin, and he's done 4 or 5 videos with us now. We really appreciate him. And just encourage everybody, if you're a new member, go and watch those videos after our show tonight. All right, go ahead, you.
Yeah, right on. So the big thing to take away is, what's the present value of all this future money that the Big 12 schools are going to get from 2025 to 2035? That's going to be $400 million in today's terms. That's how much everything you're seeing here, that's the math you're seeing, but what equates to is $400 million worth per school. That's the thing to stick in your head, okay?
Okay.
Now, let's jump to the ACC. Okay. Here we go. ACC payouts. The ACC payouts are more complex than the Big 12 payouts. And the reason for that is because there's 2 different components that the ACC payouts get that the Big 12 does not get. And they get a chunk of ACC network revenue distributions. And they also get a little bit of bonus per school with Stanford, Cal, and SMU. And so you're looking here at numbers here, and that equates to the per school numbers. So here, what this is saying, that is an ESPN and ACC network related cash that's coming in from the media contracts and the ACC network. Each school in 2025 is expecting to get roughly $35 million. And so what's a misnomer, if you've ever gone out and looked for the ACC or the ESPN agreement with the ACC, it actually shows that the ACC doesn't make as much as the Big 12. It actually reports only about like $17 to $20 million a year in payouts, in that range and everything. But that fails to present what distributions that the ACC is getting from the ACC network that's a joint venture with the ESPN.
Yep.
So they're actually making more money than the Big 12 now. And as far as media payouts on the ESPN side, and that's their tier 1 content, and also on the ACC network side. So combine those figures from 2025 to 2035, and you can see just that steady increase in everything, because they, based on the Florida State complaint, actually helped us with some of this information too. The Florida State complaint from back in December of 2023. So last year broke out the tier 1 ESPN dollar figures. So we actually have that information available in the complaint. Okay. So that's where some of this information is coming from. College football playoff related monies is around $13 million a year. That's been reported by multiple sources and everything. That's per school per year. Then lastly, this was kind of a fun exercise, Stanford, Cal, and SMU. So Stanford and Cal are going to be paying 70% of their tier 1 monies over to existing members, and SMU is paying everything, right, for the whole life cycle of this contract. So from 2025 to 2035, everything that SMU gets as far as tier 1 revenues goes to existing members. They don't get anything in tier 1. But Stanford and Cal, that starts tapering off in 2031, 2032, 2033, 2034, and so on, and everything. They're getting more of the share of the tier 1 revenues based on the agreement that they have. So I know that's a little bit complicated and everything, but really those are the sources of payouts that the ACC teams are going to get per year. And when you look at that, the total is in 2025, each member school of the ACC, including Florida State and Clemson, no adjustments there yet, is around $54 million in year-related payouts. And you can see the sources. That's moving up and up and up. And then in 2035, if ESPN extends the contract, and keep this in mind, if Clemson and Florida State stay in the conference, ESPN's definitely extending this contract because it's super lucrative for ESPN to do it. In 2035, theoretically, the ACC would pay out around $63 million. And so if you grab all those periods of money, the cash flows from 2025 to 2035, and you look at today's value of all those, it roughly amounts to $499 million.
Okay.
Including Stanford, Cal, and SMU.
Yep.
So we looked at the Big 12 contract, which was roughly $400 million per year per school from 2025 to 2035. And now we've looked at the ACC payouts, the contracts, and it says that they're worth about $499 million. So the ACC is projected to make more in its current iteration than the Big 12. And it's not really that close. 400 million versus 499 with no change.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on here. Okay, now we're going to make one adjustment here. Say that Florida State and Clemson both leave the conference, like we're anticipating they will. And what could that do to the existing ACC contract? And if you reduce the ESPN and ACC network related money by the portion of eyeballs that Florida State and Clemson get, which is roughly 35% of all ACC eyeballs, it reduces the value of the contract. You guys with me? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so we went from 499 roughly to 352.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's the big takeaway right there. So from with no adjustment, today's dollars for every ACC member, $499 million. That's how much the ACC contract's worth to each member. If Florida State and Clemson leave, that reduces to $352 million from $499. Massive, massive,
Wow.
massive, massive, right?
Yep.
And this is making the assumption that ESPN still extends the ACC contract with Florida State and Clemson outside of the conference too.
And
So-
that's next Friday. That's next February. It
Yes.
has to be either agreed to, maybe rebalanced. But there has to be a continuation of that contract to have any amount of value to move forward.
Right, because if ESPN does not extend that contract, these payouts are zero from 2027 to 2035. They don't have a media contract. But everyone thinks, as do I, that they're going to get some type of lower offer. And if the lower offer is indeed by the eyeball share that are leaving the conference, this is what the math looks like. $352 million per school.
So Daniel Gygax did the math and is telling us $147 million leaves with Clemson and Florida State.
It sounds right to me. Yeah, exactly. That's the idea. $147 million leaves with Clemson and Florida State.
Okay.
Now, if we continue on here, let's see what happens if Miami joins Clemson and Florida State and gets out of the conference too.
Oh my
God.
Wow.
I mean, this is real. This is
right.
Like, this is the stuff that each school is doing, the analysis that each school is doing to see what kind of money they can expect in the future and what type of break-even analysis they have, especially with the Big 12, because everyone knows that a Power 2 invite, you're taking that. The long math's there. It's an easy decision and stuff. But looking at the Big 12 and jumping over to the Big 12, at what point does that make sense? That's what this is really all about, guys.
Really quick, before you move to the next slide, we got Doc Gibbs, our resident, want to look at the numbers. Want to make sure we have them right.
Sure.
He says, but the ACC reduction does not include uplift for schools' share of exit fees. Ute?
Yeah, I'm so excited you brought that up, Doc. We're actually going to go there. And that's we're not there yet. We're getting there. I know it's a lot, y'all. I know there's a lot of numbers and stuff. This is important. We're getting there. That's completely relevant because that might be a means for why ACC teams would want to stay. So that's a really relevant and great point.
Okay.
We're not there yet, though.
Okay.
All right. Let's continue. We'll see what happens when Miami leaves, too.
Sorry.
Okay.
I can't handle this. This is too funny.
Same mechanics that we just used for FSU and Clemson leaving conference. So now we're looking at the reduction in ESPN and ACC network related payouts contract that reduces by roughly 45%. With Miami leaving, because keep in mind the viewership share over the last 8 years, Miami, Florida State, and Clemson account for roughly 45% of all the eyeballs in the conference. So this is making the assumption that ESPN renegotiates but discounts the original contract by 45% because of the brands leaving, which I really do think is reasonable, guys. I do. But here's what the math looks like. really taking a lot of the other same assumptions here. You can I lay them out right there for everyone to see. But the big idea is today's dollars for each member is roughly 307 million. So we moved from 499 million
Wow.
with FSU and Clemson in conference to the last. And then now with Miami leaving too, we're saying that all the existing ACC members, the worth of this media contract would drop down to 307 million from 499 with no one leaving. So a huge steep drop, right? So just it illustrates how important those three brands are. These are the big three right here. And as far as football viewership, it's Clemson, Florida State, Miami. We all know that, but really it's so important to see that 45% of all ACC viewership is coming from these three schools historically. And if you lose these three schools in realignment and you have to adjust down the contract, it really bites from 499 million per school to 307 per school.
Really quick, we want to shout out to Steve Hoy, Florida. Says, time to take shelter where I am. Current tornado warning. Go get in that shelter, Steve.
For sure.
Take care of your family. We appreciate you being here, though. Thank you. Okay, you.
Yeah, stay safe. Okay. How about if we throw UNC into the bucket too and look what happens to the ACC media contract when Clemson leaves, Florida State leaves, Miami leaves, and say UNC got out of the Wolfpack backpack and jumped, and all of a sudden you're without those four schools, which are the four most valuable schools in the ACC. What happens? Okay, that's what we're going to look at. All right, so
wow.
Looking at the share, the viewership share is even more significant. More than half the ACC viewership share of the last 8 years is gone out the window. And if you were going to adjust down the ESPN media payouts and everything, and factor in the present value per member, that drops to $277 million per existing member. So now we've moved from 499 million per member to now 277 without these four schools. So major drops, right, in obviously the worth of the contract. And that's the big idea here is like, how much is the contract worth today and the payouts worth today, these revenue streams? And without those four schools, it'd be worth roughly $277 million per school.
Wow.
So yeah, we've looked at a lot of information so far. So curious if there's any more comments in the chat or anything.
Oh, sure. We've got a bunch.
Let's
Let's run through a few of these. Let's go with Vipo99 Vipo. Good to have you here, Vipo. I don't recognize your call sign, so it's good to see you. Thanks for joining the show. He says Clemson and FSU have higher viewership because they win more games, which attracts more viewers, and they play in the best time slots on the best networks. This obviously came up also on Greg's show a couple times last week. That is true. The time slots, obviously, if those schools are gone, that means other schools will shift into those time slots, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to pick up those viewers. In fact, we would argue that they're probably going to lose more. Go ahead, you.
Yeah. Okay. Let me put that back in a different way. Would you be, I hate this too, but this is true and it illustrates the point. Would you be more willing to watch in the same primetime TV spot an undefeated USC Trojan football team or an undefeated Utah Utes football team? I think that most people would want to watch a USC Trojan team because of the brand. I think the brand lifts viewership significantly under the same circumstances. So that's all great and everything. I don't buy it though, guys. I don't buy that because like these are your biggest brands here. So if you're saying here that all of a sudden Wake Forest, because they've been bad, all of a sudden they start winning games and they lift up to get the FSU time spots and channels that they're going to get FSU type numbers, that is just incorrect. That's not going to happen. Brands matter. History matters. What you're looking at right here, these are the four strongest brands in the ACC. So actually, I think that, and you have to keep in mind too, another factor here is that every single one of those viewership share percentages, those teams like your Wake Forest were playing Florida State's to get their own numbers and stuff. So they were getting upside from playing all these good teams and brands. And I don't think that changes much. in the future and stuff, do you think that the ACC is going to get more popular losing these brands? Do you think they're going to be able to warrant the same TV numbers? I just don't. I really think you lose this type of value. So that's the response to it.
We got Ryan Willie's gifted 5 more memberships. Moan, why don't you tell everybody about those?
Yeah, those memberships went to Doc Gibbs, Sky, Gene Watson, Cougar Tracks, and Jamie Thornton. Make sure you thank the friendly badger, Ryan Willie, in the chat, and Doc Gibbs. As soon as this show's over, you can now go see North Carolina State to the Big 12 and argue with you in the comments.
Yeah, we're
And
looking
thank
forward
you,
to
Ryan
those.
Willie. That makes you a
Winner.
winner.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Sorry I didn't clap. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll
Been
clap for you.
Again, I'd like to thank everybody for doing gift memberships. If you happen to receive a gift membership, we encourage everybody to pay those forward so somebody else can go watch those videos, get as many members watching those special videos that we have in the members only section. There's some really good stuff there, and it just backs up all the data that basically this is a sum up show from all the work that WildUte has done over the last year. This really wraps up a lot of those shorts into one presentation. So we appreciate everybody for doing that. All right. Let's get through a few
We're not
slides.
even to the best part yet.
I know
y'all.
I'm trying to get you to move along. Let's get a couple more. There's a couple slides in there. I can't wait.
All right, let's go forward here. Okay. So from 499 million per school to now 277 million per school based on the things that we've talked about. And the loss of the 4 schools you're seeing on the screen. All righty. So let's look now at the ACC payout and the Big 12 payout. Because here's something to think about. Mentioned it before, but the survival of the ACC isn't based on the SEC and the Big 10. This is much similar to the Pac-12 situation where the Big 12 will be the final death knell to the ACC if it indeed falls or like it just becomes a G5 level conference. That's what you need to think about here. Obviously, teams, if they get a Power 2 invite, they're going to jump. That makes so much sense. I don't even need to break out the analysis here. But looking at the Big 12, looking at the schools versus the Big 12 teams, that's what we need to pay attention to. Like when does it become advantageous for an ACC school that is in the conference after all these teams have jumped to consider going to the Big 12? What kind of settlement money do they need to make it worthwhile staying in the ACC? That's what we're looking at. Okay, so top left, present value, that's an 11-year period of the contract payments that we looked at. Remember the $499 ACC payout per school per year with Florida State, Clemson, and everybody in-house. And remember, we looked originally at the Big 12 payout, which was $400 million. And if you subtract the $499 with $400, there's going to be some decimal points that spits out a difference of $98 million per school per year. What that says is the ACC contract in its current iteration, if no change is made, and the ESPN extends out the contract from 2027 to 2036, per school is worth about $98 million more in value than the Big 12 contract. So it's much more valuable than the Big 12 contract, the current ACC contract. That's just showing you an illustration of that. But things change when you start losing really valuable brands and members. So if you look to the right side, all of a sudden this factors in with the loss of Clemson and Florida State. What's the value of that ACC payout versus the Big 12 payout? And you can see here the difference is all of a sudden the ACC payout is roughly $49 million less over that 11-year cycle than the Big 12 payout. So what that's saying is every member in the conference, every leftover member, and there'd be 12 leftover members, not including Stanford, Cal, and everybody, they would be making $49 million less over the course of the whole payout period compared to the Big 12 once they lose Clemson and Florida State based on what we've already discussed and gone over. And so what that means and why that's really important too, this will tell you actually how much settlement money that Clemson and Florida State need to pay out to make the ACC payout still viable in relation to the Big 12 deal. Okay, so you're looking at 12 remaining schools in this scenario, And if you multiply the 49 million by 12, that equates to roughly 587,000. And if you divide that by 2, Clemson and Florida State each would have to pay out around $294 million in settlement money, respectively, separate, to make the ACC value today worth what the Big 12's contract would be valued today.
So
$294 million each. So when we're talking about settlement money and we're talking about, hey, Florida State might be able to get out for $80 million or $150 million or $200 million. If that happens, that's the nuclear scenario for the ACC. The ACC cannot afford to do that because all of a sudden their value of their payouts becomes a lot less than the Big 12's, and teams will jump to the Big 12. And so it has to be per school. FSU has to pay out $294 million, and Clemson has to pay out $294 million to break even with the Big 12 contract.
yeah, it's just crazy. And when we talk about this, let's frame it. That $294 million for each school would go to the conference, and then it would be put in a payout schedule that could be any way. It could be heavy loaded up front and then not a lot of money on the back end, or what we think it might be is a lot more consistent, get a little bit of bump right now, but for the most part, it's going to stay pretty even going into future because at the end of the day, they don't want to reward people their money now because they might leave in a year or two after.
So this assumption's made, like this is the assumption that the schools get paid out the $294 each today.
Right.
The math becomes worse if the payout schedule for the 294 is into the future too, because of time value money. That's just assuming, hey, here's a grundle of money. Everyone's going to get their share today.
Right.
So this is like best case scenario for that with 294 per school. So just think about that, y'all. So we're saying that the settlement, why do you think the ACC hasn't wanted to settle with Florida State and Clemson? Because these costs are enormous. And Florida State and Clemson I don't think they're going to be paying $294 each to get to the conference. Because that's exactly what the ACC needs to stay alive compared to the Big 12 without hemorrhaging teams to the Big 12. Moan, what do you think about that? Curious.
Yeah, I just think you need to reinforce that's the bare minimum.
Bare minimum.
That's right.
That's bare minimum just to compete with the Big 12, just to be on the level playing field with the Big 12.
That's bare minimum, and yeah, it's a lot of money that they both need to pay out. And now let's move on. Okay,
hang on, you really quick. Kerry Go Knowles gives us another super chat for $10. We appreciate that, Kerry. He says, after the ACC collapse, the Big 12 will get enough money for their football programs, but in my opinion, their basketball will suffer. What do you think about that?
I think that'd be fantastic. I think the idea of the Big 12 focusing on basketball is fool's gold, and that 80% or more of all revenue comes from football, and that's what you need to focus on if you're going to be considered a power conference. So I hate the fact that Big 12 should focus. Like I hate that comment that Big 12 should focus on basketball. That drives me nuts, actually. So I think that it should be all in football. So I think that'd be great for the Big 12 and the life of the Big 12 going forward. Big 12 should not become the Big East. Do not make this conference the Big East.
Agreed.
Let's do it. Let's add these ACC schools.
Yeah, I'll add.
That was legitness. Yeah, it was.
All right, Ute, move.
I got to get him claps.
Okay.
I got to give Corey the clap.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Kerry. So two more, and then we're done. Okay. I know there's been a lot going on so far. So let's look at now the settlement money to survive when you throw Miami into the mix and UNC in the mix too, because those numbers change a bit. Okay. So here we go. So if you throw Miami into the mix with Clemson and Florida State and compare what happens to the ACC payouts in present value dollars, all of a sudden, compared to the Big 12, you're losing roughly $93 million of the life of those payouts from the ACC schools will. And what that equates to when you do the math on it is that Clemson, Florida State, and Miami each respectively need to pay out $342 million to the ACC to make the conference viable and break even with the Big 12 contract. So if Miami leaves, in my opinion, the big backbreaker is this one. If Miami leaves with Florida State and Clemson, it's game over. I really think so. Those are the big three. So for $342 million, each one of those schools would have to pay out to the 11 remaining members and everything. So, okay. So then looking at the last scenario here, if UNC leaves too, this is looking at football viewership. All four of those schools would have to pay out around $309 million each to make the ACC whole with the Big 12 contract. And so UNC's football viewership is lower and stuff, so it's not as steep and everything as the Miami payout. But you could see that, I mean, you're talking like huge numbers and stuff with just the loss of so much viewership share and these brands and everything. So $309 million each one of those schools would have to respectively pay out to keep the ACC afloat and on par with the Big 12 contract. So those are the ACC settlement survivor figures.
1.2 billion.
That's insane.
4 teams have to pay that. That
I-
1.2 billion.
And knowing there's other options out there, right now we're only thinking Florida State and maybe Clemson have landing spots. I'm not sure anybody else does, but after them. So then they're going to have to make a decision. If all 4 of them lead, then obviously, especially North Carolina is the keystone. If they leave that conference, it's over. So
It is. How you need to think about this, though, I think going back to this figure, this 294, when you're just losing Clemson and Florida State, could you survive? Yeah, maybe. But you really need to make sure that 294 number, you're in the realm of that 294 number. I mean, this there's some assumptions in here. This is really solid and sound analysis. It's not perfect, right? Like there's always assumptions that need to be made when you're doing any type of projections. So even if you put like a 10 to 20% error rate on that figure, that still suggests that in the best case, best world scenario and everything, that the settlement money needs to be over at least $230 to $240 million for this thing to even break even with the Big 12. Like in best case, best world scenario and stuff, I think it's still more around this 294 figure based on what the analysis says. But that's the thing to pay attention to. How much is the settlement money going to be? And that's going to be considering in the grant of rights fees that might get paid out and in the exit fees. So this would be the lump sum of all those monies going out.
Clint Moses asked a very, very smart question. Where does Notre Dame fit in all this?
Yeah, Notre Dame has their own contract with NBC. So their football related contract is completely separate than the ACC's. And so they have their own agreement on the side. And Notre Dame's in conference for everything else but football. But we're really talking about football here. Football drives the bus on everything here. So Notre Dame's not really, involved in this analysis much at all. They're really kind of irrelevant to it because their football program isn't getting factored into the ACC's media deal.
Let's do a quick reset. Make sure we're setting everybody up for questions and answers here. We appreciate everybody for being on. Right now, our comments are just flying. We've marked a ton, so we'll try to get as many as we can. Just so you know, everybody can leave a comment. We do see them, but we definitely defer to membership and members' comments. Always will get a preferential treatment. And then, of course, if you want to get involved in this and you really want to get your question across, make it a super chat. We read all the super chats, and it really helps us sort of focus on what you guys think is most important. This presentation you put together took him tons of time. I don't even want to tell everybody how many hours, and it's really detailed. So we're waiting for questions to come to us. We'll break them down and see what we can do to give them some answers. We got a super chat right out the gate here from Ryan Willie for $2. Says, if FSU Clemson leave, ACC is cooked. Are we at a point where we've said that sort of in passing over the last several months between the three of us? I'll give my opinion first. But what do you guys think? I think if FSU and Clemson leave, there is a slim chance that they do try to reform, but I don't think they get the same media deal. If they re-sign with ESPN, it's going to be for a smaller number. What do you guys think?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what the assumptions said as well. I think that there's a slim possibility it might survive, but it just depends on how much money they get in the settlement costs. And if it's within the ballpark of what they need and stuff, based on their own analysis, similar to what you've just seen, then to break even with the Big 12 deal, and maybe it survives. The one that's going to kill them, though, is in Miami. If they lose Miami in addition, it's done. I think that they could survive theoretically. I would put like ACC survival way less than 50% if FSU and Clemson leave. But with FSU, Clemson, and Miami leaving, it's done. Those are the three that you can't lose.
Moen, what do you think?
I think if the ACC is cooked,
Let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook. I said, let him cook.
Fantastic. Appreciate it. Thank you very much, Ryan, for the super chat. We always appreciate you and your loyalty. Thank you very much. Kerry Johnson says, but if the payout was $240 million, that means teams leaving have to pay $240 million. Is it worth a team leaving at $240 million? Yes. Teams get $69 million more for the contracts till 2035, but has to pay $240 million. So they're asking between the exit fee and the difference that they'll be making joining another conference. We'll just say it's the Big 12. What do you think in the numbers sort of contrast and compare there?
I think it's relevant. I think the ACC is going to fall apart if Miami leaves too. And so like the payouts, the exit fee related payouts for the other schools, I don't know what those would look like. And maybe the conference ceases to exist. So that gets really into a tricky scenario and stuff to see what those look like. So that's what I would say to it.
Moen, what do you think?
yeah, I think if all things are being equal, you have to try and future-proof yourself. So yeah, I think an obvious for some schools, it's going to be obvious, but then you're going to have it's going to be play out similar to the way the Pac-12 died. You're going to have one school jump like a Louisville, and then you're going to have them dragging a Pitt, a Virginia Tech, in my opinion, a Syracuse into the conference with them.
How many teams could the ACC lose? And at what point do payoffs, does the conference just completely dissolve, right? Isn't there like a certain amount of teams that leave and all of a sudden the conference could theoretically dissolve?
If it was to happen before August 14th, I believe it would take 8 schools and Notre Dame in there somewhere to dissolve the conference. I don't know if there's enough time for that to happen at this point. But and nobody knows what would happen if they dissolve the conference. There's still some open questions as to who has to pay what. Does ESPN might get money back? There's all those other things too. We can't really project that right now. I don't think. Do you guys have any other comments on that? I don't think there's much more we can say about that. Okay. Let's see here. College Football Mafia. Who is that guy? That's Moen, so everybody knows.
Yeah, we gifted memberships out to the community. These are some of our promo memberships we get at the beginning of the month. Patrick Weigel, RT, Jay Chapman, Chris Evans, Gary Chadwick. Welcome to the College Football Mafia family. As soon as we're done with the show, you're more than welcome to run over there and check out the latest WildUte University, Timeline, my show, or Justin Kuz's Corner.
Absolutely. That Kuz's Corner, the latest one that's a members-only video, is really, really good. I would encourage everybody, if you're a member, to check that one out first. It's really good. And then Timeline. How many of those have you done now, Moen?
I have done one, and Immaculate and I are working on a second one. We've got 2 differing views on what would happen if the Pac-16 was formed. If Texas Tech, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State joined the Pac-12 and became the Pac-16, how would that affect the other conferences?
Very good. I love that. That's another good one. Let's see here. Illini Ted says, I believe some of the teams from the Pac had the argument that Big 12 money wasn't enough, but ultimately decided some money is better than no money. What do you have? You're first person there. How's that go?
Yeah, I think you've just nailed it, Illini Ted. The offer to the Pac-12 was $30 million from ESPN, and from Apple, it was in the low 20s with some performance bonuses. So it wasn't even near on point with the ESPN contract that the Big 12 signed at the end of the day, which was $31.7 million. The Pac-12 turned down ESPN at $30 million. And so that deal was off the table, never came back. So they made a strategic blunder. Although I would argue that the Pac-12 was dead anyway after losing USC. So it was just a matter of time before it fell apart.
Yes.
So it is what it is.
Very, very true. I don't really have anything to add to that. Moen, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, would you say the same thing when Clemson and Florida State leave the ACC?
I would.
100%.
Isn't it essentially dead?
It's exactly the exact same premise. Yeah.
You just nailed it, Moan. Like it's
Yep.
dead. It's not. It might not be dead tomorrow, but it's dead down the line at some point. And I think schools are probably going to jump, guys. I think that like your Louisvilles that are going to be pursued by the Big 12 are probably going to make that move and everything. Looking at the loss of value as we've seen, why wouldn't you?
I could see Louisville getting a payout like Colorado got easily.
Definitely.
To be the first to go. If they're the first ones out the door after Florida State and Clemson leave, absolutely. I think Louisville is right there, and they're prepared to do it too. But
And like, yeah, and how much do you think that Florida State's really going to pay in all total settlement related money? Do you think it's going to be around $294 million, or do you think it's going to be around 100, 150?
80
So
to 120.
it's going to be a
I
lot
still
less
think
than we're
that's
talking
in the
about, right?
number.
Like,
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. We got another super chat from Kerry Go Knowles, this time $20. Thank you so much,
you,
Kerry.
Kerry.
We appreciate it so much, brother. We really, really do. Thank you very much. We got a
Let him
blow
cook.
out there, Moen.
Let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook.
Let's go.
I said
That's it.
let him cook.
Let them cook, and I'll give you a Georgia
I
Tech.
love it.
Georgia Tech.
Georgia Tech. Everybody take a drink. All right. He says, great show, guys. Thanks for the awesome presentation, Ute. Let him cook. And that's everybody get in there and take a drink. If you have a chance, be safe and very nice to your family and friends if you're drinking. Joey Z says, Georgia Tech, Mafia, Tech a drink. We'll
You guys
go
are
with that.
wild tonight.
And then Glenn Lewin, all the way from the Philippines. Better late than never, Glenn. Thank you so much for being here, brother. You need to tell me when you're back in the States. We need to get together. I'd really like to do that, so hit me up. But he says, good morning from the Philippines. We're an international show here at College Football Mafia Network. DP, one of our local Clemson experts. Coos puts out good shows. I've done a lot of work at West Virginia, so it makes it interesting to me. He does. Coos does very good shows.
Coos is a friend of ours.
Absolutely.
He's a friend of ours, and he should be a friend of yours.
I like that a lot. Let's see here. Oh, I just had it and it moved. Dan Miter says, I believe Big 12 adds teams if media wants them to. At this point, Yormark can renegotiate for $5-10 million more per team. We've had that conversation. We've talked about it many, many times. How many schools and what would they need to be for the Big 12 to actually gain and go up from that $31.7 million?
It'd have to be Miami. It'd have to be Louisville, and it'd have to be Pitt. And I don't think that the contract is going to jump by 5 or 10 million. It's probably going to increase by maybe 2 or 3
per school.
It's just so per school because
Right.
we're talking about a lot of schools to feed, right?
Yep.
Like you're also almost talking about 19 schools in that situation. So that's just a lot of money to add on. Miami would be the biggest multiplier, and then I think followed by Louisville and Pitt, just based on the games, the rivalries they bring. Those are the 3 maximizers.
Okay. We've talked about that a lot. Haven't really started drilling down on those schools, but I believe extrapolating from the data you've presented in the shorts and also here, I think we can make some of those assumptions. Louisville is a fantastic pickup for the Big 12.
Yeah.
Probably should have gotten them years ago and missed the boat there. But let's see here. Cougar Tracks says, another one of our members says, Texas and Oklahoma got out for less money than the full price. So will FSU and Clemson. And I would add to that, there was another note that I lost it. I don't know where it went, but that ESPN actually reimbursed some of the payout money for Texas and Oklahoma to leave the Big 12. What are we thinking about that?
Yeah, but they paid to get out early by 1 year.
Yeah.
It's a lot different for the ACC teams that are having to pay to get out early. Now, obviously, they're going to argue 2027 is the date, so it's 2 years. But according to the ACC, they believe it's 2036, which is a long ways away.
Go ahead, you.
I think that is safe to say, though, if FSU gets out for $150 million or less, this thing is completely toast. Like, it is definitely toast. Like, the ACC cannot afford to let FSU out for any more than the high 200 millions, as we've seen here. That's 100% legitimate. So I don't know, if you're the ACC, what the heck do you do? You can't afford to settle. You can't afford to settle based on that, because FSU ain't going to pay out $300 million. I don't see that. So I don't know what you do in the ACC case. I think they're in the biggest dang pickle, guys. I don't really know. Any solutions there you guys can think of?
Sorry, I keep hitting the comment from Kerry. In my opinion, which is, is only mine, I believe that if it's the 80 to 120 or even up to 200, Florida State, Clemson, Miami all write a check to get out if they're pretty certain they got a big invite for one of the big two. And it's just not enough money to sustain the conference as a whole. That's my opinion. Moen?
Yeah, I think if they leave, regardless of what the payout is, people are going to look to leave the conference. You're taking the two biggest brands who make up 35% of your viewership. You can't survive on that. You can't. That's why the ACC is fighting. The ACC has no choice but to fight. It's, it's a zero-sum game, so.
And now we have two combatants that are fully engaged. Clemson and Florida State now are both suing the ACC, and by addition also ESPN to really get what they can get, because they know there's grass is greener somewhere else. So it's pretty extreme.
Yeah. So they can't come to the settlement table.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Everyone thinks they're going to the settlement table, and so did I. But now I'm just not sure
don't.
how that works, because if FSU is not even in that ballpark, then like the ACC might just need to see this lawsuit out and win the lawsuit to make them stay in the conference.
Well, they can go to mediation and force the, using your numbers, or I'm sure the ACC has these numbers.
Yeah, they've got their own set, but
they've got their own set, so they know the number. If they go to mediation, it's going to be this number or nothing.
Right.
I mean, they've got a line in the sand that's basically drawn.
The needle is moved. You said it yourself. You thought one thing, now you think something else now. I would just add to that when people went in for expectations, all they had to look at was what happened with the Pac-12. As a reference, they're saying, okay, this happened over here. This is what Oklahoma and Texas did. Somewhere in there, it's all going to come together, and we're going to have a number, and it'll all wash out. Washington State, Oregon State, they got their thing. Big 12 got their thing. Seeing these numbers now, and we've always known them intrinsically, all three of us, even when Immaculate's been on and everybody else has contributed, has had that in the back of their head. They generally knew what the number needed to be to make it work. But for you to break it down like this and show everybody stark black and white, it has to be this or else. And I've thought from the very beginning, I think only chance ACC has is to string out the entire thing. Fight tooth and nail, because they're fighting for survival right now. I don't even think there's a question about it.
Right. Yeah, this thing might get strung out till judgment.
Right.
ACC might make Florida State stay if they.
I think Florida State at this point would basically walk away from their home games that ESPN owns and just try to maximize their away. And I don't know. I think they're going to do anything they can to get out, though. Kerry Go Knowles, another super chat for $4.99 says, I'm hearing FSU will pay more than 175 ish tops. After today, I think a lot less. Take a drink. Kerry, yeah. I think you're there.
If
now, when you said judgment, did you mean judgment or did you mean judgment?
like a ruling.
Like Judgment Day or Judgment?
I mean, ACC Judgment Day will be coming soon. It sounds
Okay.
like, but the ACC might have to play out for a real ruling in these legal cases to hold teams in conference because of financial reasons.
Right.
And they can appeal it. That's the thing.
Oh,
They can
sure.
appeal this and go on years and years and years to try and hold
That
these teams
is-
as long as they can.
That's the most toxic thing in the world to hear, but that might be the best financial solution for the ACC, guys. Seriously, just to drag the sucker out and make FSU and Clemson stay. Sorry, Knowles fans. I know you don't want to hear that, Clemson fans and stuff, but this is on
It's
the
a
other side
nightmare
of the coin.
scenario, I think.
It's rough, but yeah. Thank you, Kerry.
Sorry, I just
I'll
had
give Miss
a
Platt,
lag
hold on.
there. I apologize about that. Okay, good.
Well, maybe I will.
There we go.
Thank-
Thank you, Carrie. Doc Gibbs again. Always taking a side eye at a lot of the stats we put out. As Pac-12 schools jump to the Big 12, had anyone done as much scrutiny on value of this Pac-12 schools or not to the Big 12 as being done for ACC schools? And I will say absolutely yes. Yes, I can attest to him. I saw him. You broke this down way back last March. It was maybe even earlier for him, but I saw him in April. And I know for a fact they were all done. So everybody
I should
knew.
pull up the old Pac-12 financial model
think
I built
you
last year
should do
before the
that.
destruction. I wonder
I think
how.
it's a good
I haven't
idea.
looked at it for a long time. We should look at it to see how good it was.
I think it was pretty.
had-
I think it was pretty.
It had
long.
Oregon number 1. It had Washington number 2.
It did.
And then Stanford was up there too, though. Stanford was really high. I thought Stanford would get grabbed by the Big
Well,
Ten.
but
Shocked.
if you remember, and this is we're kind of going off here on the side tangent for a little bit, but when we looked at standard as a value proposition, that included all the educational stuff that comes with it, right? The brand and how we valued that was,
yes.
here's Stanford, here's everybody else type of a thing. So, but I would encourage everybody, those are short videos. Go to the very beginning of Big 12 Mafia, the very first videos we did. And there's some amazing work that was done. And I think Ute was probably within 5 or 10% on all the stuff that he put out. It was pretty
Yes,
amazing.
Doc, been doing this a long time in this realignment game. I'm a nerd. I like doing it and stuff, and built it for the Pac-12, built it for the ACC. Well, built it for the Big Ten once Ohio State decided they wants to leave and form a super conference. So we'll keep doing this.
Let's see here. Clay Johansson, one of our members, says pay $240 million to get $69 million more. Math doesn't add up. They still would be $170 million in the hole. Can you answer that?
Pay $240 million to get $600 million more. Math doesn't add up. Not really. Why don't you DM me, Clay? I'm not really following that, but I'm happy to answer and have dialogue about this too, for sure.
Everybody look him up. Here's his I'll bring up everybody's little code words. You guys look us up on Twitter. Make sure you subscribe to this show on YouTube. Make sure you give us a thumbs up. I don't know another video out there right now that's more important than what you're watching right now live. So give us a thumbs up. Tell everybody about it. Make sure you subscribe, and then follow us all on Twitter and turn on your notifications on Twitter and on YouTube. Here's a shout out from C. John. C. John's good to see you. Man, great presentation. Very eye-opening. There you go.
Thank you much. Thank you much.
Hats off. Let's see here. Ryan Kibbe says, thanks for the analysis, Ute.
Thank you, Mr. Kibbe.
RT says ESPN reimbursed OU in Texas. This is the one I was talking about. Why wouldn't ESPN Fox do the same with ACC immigrants? Immigrants, I would think. No, immigrants leaving. Fox isn't part of the ACC at all. To answer part of that question.
Yeah, go ahead, Mon.
Right, but Fox would, assuming Florida State goes to the Big Ten,
right?
Fox would pay some. But again, this is the argument that the ACC has. The ACC believes it has the rights through 2036. That's 13 years from now, or 12 years from now. Florida State and Clemson are arguing. Well, Clemson's arguing they don't have the rights as soon as Clemson says we're out. But Florida State's made the argument that 2027 should be the real date. Texas and Oklahoma was just 1 year out. So they paid for 1 year, basically.
Would ESPN agree to extend the contract if Florida State and Clemson remained in the conference, but were just rattling the cage like crazy, trying to get out like they are now? I
don't
think they
yeah.
would, right? Like, and then
They would,
Well,
but there'd be a contingency in there that if Florida State and Clemson ever left,
yes,
the
makes
value
sense.
plummets.
Exactly.
And it's kind of like the look in that Yormark got for the college football playoff negotiation. We would be talking about a look out. They would be projecting to whenever they left, this would be the amount that they would settle for. It would be really horrible. It would be bad PR for the ACC. And even at that point, I find it hard to believe that they would extend the conference knowing it's on thin ice at the same value, knowing that if they left, say Florida State left after they re-upped in February, the nightmare scenario for the ACC or ESPN, depending on how you look at it, is you bring in UConn and Memphis, and now ESPN is paying Florida State money for UConn and Memphis. Does anybody see how that works out? I can't do the math. And in fact, I think there's only 2 or 3 schools, even in the ACC right now, that are even worth 60 to 70 million. Maybe even not all that. So I don't know. There's too many questions, in my opinion. Daniel Gygax, one of our members, says the ACC can tie it up for years. If it goes to SCOTUS, that's the Supreme Court, for those that don't know, that's 3 to 4 years before it can be considered. Thoughts?
Do they have the balls to do it? Does the ACC have the balls to just kick this down the road, not go to the settlement table, then end up here in 4 years? For Florida State's case, I hope not. But it might be the play, though. That might be what they're trying to do here. What's becoming pretty clear, though, is settlement might not be the best solution for ACC.
I don't want to see this become who can out petty who, because I mean, the ACC could tie this up, but Florida State and Clemson can also do their fair share of, okay, well, we're going to sell our away games or we're only going to schedule away games and we're not going to schedule ACC games. We're no longer a member. There's ways that both of them can snipe at each other without.
That's true. Yep, that's exactly right, Moen. Here's a sort of a thought project for everybody to take on tonight. It's possible that Cal, Stanford, and SMU flip to the new pack. That would be Washington State and Oregon State, sending UTSA to the new ACC. So let's work through that really quick. That would be they walk away from their agreements, pay a fee or whatever it is, go back to be with Oregon State, Washington State, and whoever they get from the Mountain West, leaving the ACC now short 3 schools plus a possible 3 or 4 more.
Right. Well, SMU can afford that $130 million exit fee. Cal definitely can't. Stanford probably could, but they're going to have to take from their endowment to do it.
Right.
But Cal is already at a deficit, so there's no way they can add a $130 exit fee to go join the pack.
What's more valuable for Cal and Stanford, being in a Pac-12-ish conference with SMU, Oregon State, Wazoo, or remaining in a dilapidated ACC conference? Less Florida State, less Clemson, less Miami. I think that based on travel costs and everything else involved, I think that it's more advantageous to be in a Pac conference. Right. And I don't think it's really even that close. So that makes me think that Cal, Stanford, and SMU might be joining in the brigade to leave the conference, guys, and fold the conference of the ACC, because they don't want to be paying any fees. They just signed on. They're not going to get paid anything.
Right.
So they might not be advocates, but adversaries for the ACC if things go south.
So, and let's think about that. That is an interesting proposal, because that would mean potentially, because the Washington State and Oregon State, the Pac-12, right, now Pac-2, They did just negotiate a deal, a broadcasting deal with Fox and with WB. Do I have that right? Was it Fox that took 3 games?
Fox and CW. The WB doesn't
CW.
exist.
Sorry. I apologize. CW and Fox just signed a 14-game, I think, deal with that conference, or at least those schools.
10
They're
games.
trying to what?
It was 10 games, 7 on CW, 3 on Fox.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's why you're here. I appreciate that, Mon. That's national broadcast. Now you picture there has to be some conversation out there as a temporary measure to reduce travel costs and everything else. They do come back. Are we in a headspace where before August 2nd, or whatever that day is for when they finally take over? Actually, I think SMU comes in July. Could those 3 schools be talking about going back to the Pac-12? Or at least
Things
2
get
of them?
bad enough, 100%. If things get bad enough, but I think that Florida State, Clemson, Miami would have to be out of conference for it to happen.
Gosh,
Those 3 would have to be out.
That is crazy to consider. All right.
I have a different point of view. I think Stanford and Cal would basically present themselves to the Big Ten and literally take any deal.
I could see that happening.
Master.
It could be like $1 a year deal, and they would have
Yeah.
to take it.
Yep.
You know,
Why would the Big Ten take them?
Because I think
because if you could get them for $1 a year or a very low payout, it'd be worth
Wouldn't
it
that
just
be?
to quash their arrogance.
Well, plus
Wouldn't that
it's
be
California. It's still eyeballs.
Yeah.
You know, with
Travel partners.
Michigan, Cal, once every 3 years. I mean, it could be really. It
And
could
if you're
work.
going to 24 teams, you need 6 teams in a pod. That's your West Coast
Right.
pod right there.
Yeah, I still think we're a ways away from 24, but anything's possible for sure.
Crap's gonna hit the fan with those schools, and if I'm Oregon State and Wazoo, I am just sitting back, like, yep, we'll see what happens here. They've got to have a big smile on their face, like this is so amazing.
So
We're gonna come
those
back
3
crawling.
schools, are they tampering if they have open conversations with Washington State? Are they technically really tied to anything before July and August?
Are they a
believe they're-
member?
No. They don't. SMU joins in July. Cal and Stanford join in August.
Okay. But I think it's like they've got.
They signed the grant of rights, didn't they?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
they've
they
got like
did.
a letter of
I think
intent.
that they're
so.
blood oath to this thing.
Well, but this happened before where the Aztecs joined the Big East and then pulled out 4 months later and paid a fee, right? It has happened
when
before.
TCU did that.
TCU did the exact same thing. So it has
Yeah.
happened before. I don't know. I could see that's some craziness.
It's such a hot mess.
That is such a hot mess. What an amazing time to be covering this stuff. Kerry Go Knowles for $10. Another super chat says it's not like FSU hasn't played all their games away from home before.
Yeah, but I think you have to have 6 of them classified as home games. So
He's right though. That's true.
you can play in
Don't mess with
Jacksonville.
Florida
but-
State and the Florida AG. The Florida AG.
Kerry, I
Okay.
salute that. That's a great comment. I love it. That's fantastic. Rock and Rant gives us a super chat. He is a moderator. Everybody be careful. He's got the hook. And also a contributor to the show. We appreciate you, Rock. Says if Miami starts winning, the 3 will be over 50%. Could we say if Miami wins 10 games this year, they would definitely be over 50%?
They're going to get good viewership for sure.
I think they would. Moen, what do you think about that? It's a projection, it's not.
Projection. Okay, they win 10 games this year, but I mean that you got to do that for multiple seasons for me to believe Miami's back. I mean,
Right.
Mark Richt came up and won 10 games, and they pushed him out the door for Manny Diaz, and it went downhill from there. So, give me a coach that's winning consistently, and I'll believe it.
Okay.
Pull up the viewership share slide again. Let's take a look at.
Let me add that. Hang on. There you go. Let me bring off this comment. There you
see
go.
what Rock. So Rock's saying that Clemson, Florida State, and Miami combined could get up to 50%. Right now they're at roughly 45%. So
Right.
yeah, I mean, if they had a hot streak and everything, they could lift near 50%, you'd think. Might be a little stretchy, maybe like around 46.5%. Miami's on fire, but like, yeah.
It's close. It's very, very close. Obviously, Rock is a Miami guy, so we appreciate your comment, Rock. Thank you very much. Cougar Track says the pack will rise again.
The pack's not dead.
Yeah, and just to add on top of that, Clint Moses says tampering, LMAO, too late for that. So he doesn't really care one way or the other. I think he'd love to have those schools back. Obviously, it fortifies their position for sure. Let's get to some more comments here. No, already did the super chat from Rock. Let's see here. Illini Ted. There's a real possibility the ACC and PAC live on as lower tier FBS conferences, placing one or two of them in the process by the next media deals. So we're talking about a 2 plus a 1.5 and then everybody else. What do you guys think about that? I know Immaculate's talked about an educational type ACC, maybe a little focus on basketball, but would be fortified by Notre Dame. That's another idea too with Duke and whatnot. What do you guys think about that?
Can you afford to support football in this new age of college football where you're probably going to be paying players, right? Like we've talked about. We talked about in the House case how it could be like $20 to $30 million a year coming out for large conferences. Like I'm not sure that the math really adds up to keep football around. If
it's going to be
you're
hard.
Getting real low payouts, right? And that you're considered like still not a G level conference, but whatever they would be, it would be really much harder to argue that. So maybe a school like Wake Forest might fold football.
Jeez. Moen?
You would have to, the SEC would have to take 4 ACC teams, and the Big Ten would have to take 2, and you would have to have Notre Dame abandon the ACC. Once that happens, whatever's left of that conference is going to have to decide what they're doing. Are they going to backfill with lower teams like ECU, or are they going to try and maybe do some kind of merger deal with the Big East and say, hey, let us join the Big East in basketball and we'll bring football back? I don't know, but there's going to be a lot of schools out there that are going to have a lot of figuring out to do.
Very true. Mr. Ed Wayner, another one of our members, says, if FSU and Clemson were to pay $200 million each to leave, does the exit fee drop for a Miami, Louisville, and others based on their individual media value? That's a question I don't think we've ever taken on. Is the exit fee at all tied to what their current value is in the media deal?
In theory, yes. You've nailed this one, Ed Wayner. That's what the talk is right now, that the exit fee would be related to how much value in eyeballs you bring the conference. That wouldn't be necessarily a static amount. And so that's, while it's unclear, theoretically, this could be absolutely the case that Louisville would have a different exit fee amount than Florida State. And it would be lower because it's not as difficult to lose Louisville as it is to Florida State because of the eyeball factor. So that's still to be determined, but that's where like the smoke is pointing.
You want to add anything to that, Moen?
That should be, you're right, in theory. In practice, the ACC is going to want $200 million from everybody that leaves.
Right. I think that's absolutely true. OPD Don's poked his head in. Good to see you, Opie. So the Godfather's figure of between 200 to 240 million falls short then. The Godfather's, what we're talking about, peek around the corner, Greg Flugar. His estimate was 200 to 240 million. Can you blanket say that amount is not enough to sustain what they currently have in today's money? Yeah.
I think that in any analysis, you need to put a margin of error. And so if you put a 10% margin of error on the 294 figure that we talked about, then like you're in the, you reduce that by 10% and like you're in the 260 range. I'm just kind of spitballing. But like even if you went to a 20% margin of error on that 294 number, if Clemson and Florida State leave, you're in that 240 range right there, like that 240, 250 range. So the Godfather's number, if it's around 240, that might work. It's in the best case scenario and a perfect world scenario and stuff, 240 might be enough to keep ACC afloat with the loss of Florida State and Clemson. So I wouldn't say that that's incorrect. I would just say that's the absolute lowest that the ACC can accept to remain viable in relation to the Big 12.
Okay. Mullen, you want to add to that at all?
Well, speaking of Greg Flugar, we have to.
Oh!
That's one of my
I will
favorite.
remind WildUte that the Titanic stayed afloat for a while too, but it hit
2 hours.
2 hours.
2 hours.
So
2
that
hours.
240 million, they may stay afloat, but they ain't staying afloat for long because Florida State and Clemson, that's a mighty big iceberg.
And they're waiting for a big ship to float by just happenstance.
Yeah, are they going to pay out 240? No, likely
No,
not, right?
No, I don't think so. Jay Chapman says it's a Kobayashi Maru no-win scenario for the ACC.
It seems like that.
Is there any way to reprogram the simulation to win the Kobayashi Maru? Anything that could possibly these schools do, or the conference could do to somehow magically keep this thing together?
Not sign a terrible deal with the ESPN that
I would
extends
say
to 2036. That's phase one.
I would say getting Notre Dame to commit full time.
That too.
That would be my no-win scenario solution.
Why would Notre Dame commit full time to the ACC when they won't do it for the Big Ten?
I don't think they will. I'm just saying that would be the only way.
Right. Like if we're throwing like the scenarios out there that might work, like that will probably never happen, like the Notre Dame aspect to this, like, going back in time, re-signing another media deal. Like you could add like 1 million schools around the nation at 0%.
Yes.
And stuff, and you still can't get there, guys.
That's
like,
another way. People have proposed adding like 8 schools, giving them no money and letting them join a power conference.
But you're still not going to get to the Big Ten. Like,
what do you mean?
You
You have to stay up to the Big 12. The marker now is the Big 12. That's the basement. If you can't
from
stay
Florida
up with the Big
State's
12,
perspective, it's the Big 10, right?
Of course
we didn't. Yeah. Like, so they're going to, like, how do you retain Florida State?
I don't think you can.
You don't. And then all of a sudden you lose all that value that they bring in the eyeballs.
Yeah, I think
it's a no-win situation. It really is. Like, it's the biggest pickle. And I have no idea what ACC's game plan is. If there is a game plan, or just you're praying that the settlement costs are crazy expensive, like over $300 million per school. That's got to be option one, or number two, put this thing and go to ruling in a lawsuit and make Florida State stay. I think those are your solutions.
Absolutely crazy. So I'm going to do a last, just a shout out to everybody. We've got about 10 minutes and we're going to wrap this show up. So again, if you want to make sure you get your comment read in the next 10 minutes, it'll probably have to be a super chat. Otherwise, we'll take some more of these great comments that we've gotten from the field tonight. And we appreciate everybody being here. Make sure you subscribe, follow us all on Twitter, and turn on your notifications. Give us a thumbs up if you have the time to do it. We got another super chat from Carrie. Carrie's just on it for us tonight, guys. Driving content. We appreciate it, Carrie.
Thank you.
People
Carrie.
might laugh, but there's a great chance FSU pays zero. F the ACC. And just so Carrie hears me, I actually put this out months and months ago. I actually see a situation where Florida State gets off scot-free. I can see it. It's not easy, but I could see it happen. What do you guys think about that?
Go ahead, Mon.
Oh, shit. Here we go again.
Thank you so much for the super chat, Gary. I don't know. I think Florida State still ends up paying something. The only way they're getting away with zero is it's going to take years and years and years of billable hours and legal bullshit. So I think they'd rather pay something and get out quickly and just be done with than kind of try and haggle it down for the next 8 years to get to zero.
What is worth more, time or money?
Oh my gosh.
Because that's the question. You're paying up front, you're going to pay more because you want your time, or you could go the other way and string it out and say time doesn't cost you anything but some legal bills, but not in the hundreds of millions.
Break-even analysis is needed in those type of situations. And really, I think that the longer FSU waits for, another year, 2027 is coming quick, right? 2027 is coming quick. And the closer we get to 2027, the cheaper they get out, or maybe for free, who knows, right? I think that they're going to pay still, like Moen said. But really, every day that goes by, that dollar amount is less and less and less. And it's not, I don't think it's going to be $300 million. I don't think it's going to be close to it. Carrie, you said there's going to be 170 max based on what's being said in FSU circles. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 150 or less, maybe $100 million. It's just not going to work for the ACC.
Moen?
Yeah, I'm at 175. You made a great point, time versus money. I mean, you got to think of it this way. If you're going to the Big Ten, you want to get there as soon as possible so you can get those Big Ten network credits.
Right.
So the sooner you're in, and Florida State's going to be a full member, they're going to get their network credits right away. So they want to get the Big Ten network into Florida there on the basic packages and start racking up those dividends.
I've always loved Florida State. I love Bobby Bowden, right? I'm a Bobby Bowden fan from way back then. And him and Lavelle Edwards were really good friends, and really respected the way he did things. They were independent for a long time. That's tough to do. We saw, recently BYU tried to do the same thing. So as far as Florida State goes, all I want is the best for them. And I do think at some point the cost benefit analysis is not the one to break. What did you call it? The break even number. What did you just say, Ute? There's the break.
The settlement math here, the settlement survival math.
Right. Cost benefit analysis is what's in my head. Basically the same thing as what are you getting and how quickly do you want it to happen? And that's really the question. Look at this, guys. $50 from Opie Didon. Opie, I thank you so much. You've been around. There you go. That's fantastic. Greg's drop's great.
Thank you so much, Cajun Bajillionaire. We much appreciate it.
And we know that you're an OG, even if your membership's off and on. We appreciate you being around, Opie. Thank you so much. Thanks for all your hard work and time, Ute and crew. It makes great content. Ute.
That's all you. All you.
Well, that's not true. I think we help him a little bit.
We did. We checked the sources and made sure the math was okay.
Asked some questions. We tried to vet the stuff a little bit, but
vet the models for some folks that know this stuff and they felt comfortable with it. Look, guys, it's not perfect. I'm never going to say that anything that I do in the working world or anywhere else is perfect, but it's good. It's really good, and this is the best you'll find. And there is going to be a little margin of error and stuff, but still gives you that ballpark. Like, hey, it needs to be around this figure, which is enough. So, yeah, 294 guys, 294 million.
Lorenzo Haynes says, "Hi, I'm Notre Dame. I'll cut my earnings in half to join the ACC." It is remarkable that they're turning down Big Ten money.
And I'll fold my NBC contract too. Forget the NBC partnership and everything. I'll just go and sign on the ESPN contract.
The amount of money
Notre Dame's not joining the ACC full time.
Billions of dollars with a B. Notre Dame is turning down to become a full member of the Big Ten. The money boggles my mind.
It's crazy.
Moen,
it's crazy.
I know you have thoughts.
Look, they never should have let Notre Dame have the deal they did. Part of the reason they're in this predicament is the fact that they let Notre Dame become a member in football, and they give them full membership voting rights, and they won't commit to you in football. I mean, this is a classic abusive relationship. I mean, how many times are you going to let them do that? And then you let them drag Stanford, Cal, and SMU into your conference and make you the laughing stock of everybody else. So now nobody takes you seriously. So, I mean, F Notre Dame.
There we go. Jay Chapman, a new member. Good to have you here, Jay. Says the Greg button cracks me up. Yes, we do. Tip our hat at that.
Oh.
Greg, thank you so much for that. That was fantastic. Let's see. We got a few more we can sneak in under the gun here. How about Tony Lawson says Mona Vision, rumor General Booty will be private booty for the Gophers game.
All right. If nobody tuned in on Sunday, I will tell you this story again. I did one of the shorts from Friday's show where we were talking about General Booty. It got flagged as inappropriate.
Oh, it did?
I had to have a human review it to see that we were not being inappropriate.
Oh, bro.
The AI system thought we were talking about booty and not
Okay.
general booty.
goodness.
We've had a few of those, computers go to screw stuff up. But yeah, anyway. Illini Ted says, wait, so Wake Forest could get out for a couple of cases of PBR. Do they still make PBR?
Oh, hell
Pabst
yeah.
out there?
Oh, yeah. Get a 30 rack of it.
I go back way. Anyways, yeah. I won't tell those stories here.
Oh,
Let's see. DP again says, one thing I've appreciated about FSU and all this is how forward they've been for calling the ACC out. It was refreshing. I'm sure you're saying that now, DP, because Clemson's right behind you. And, your Clemson's right behind Florida State. And I think that's where they want to be. Clay Johansson again says, I hate Notre Dame, but every game they play in the ACC, the views are double or triple normal viewership for the other team. That is a fact.
100%.
Nothing really to talk about that there. Let's see here. A couple more from Doc Gibbs. Do you think the ACC schools can jump before court settlements? I don't think anybody thinks they will. What do you guys think?
They may leave the conference, but I don't think they have a landing spot. But I think if Clemson's argument is valid, then they will probably leave before August. They will probably hand their walking papers.
They need to leave before the 15th of August. Is that correct?
Yes.
Play
Yes.
Next year.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
right.
that's the drop dead date for this year.
Yes. Yep.
It's tough, without a settlement, without the courts deciding. I don't have a hard time seeing any team leave. I think they're all staying in the ACC.
Jay Chapman says SEC wants North Carolina, Clemson in that order. Not sure how much further out they'd be willing to go. And I know Jay is an SEC rep here. He's one of the SEC people we've picked up. We appreciate you being around here, Jay. I'm still not sure that they may be North Carolina. I don't think the SEC wants Clemson. That's just my opinion.
I agree. I think the SEC doesn't need Clemson as much as the Big Ten needs Clemson. And so Clemson fans, hear me out. I think the Big Ten's a better landing spot for you anyway. And I think that you'll end up in the Big Ten and not the SEC. And I think the SEC's viewpoint would be that they have that state in South Carolina and they're close to Atlanta and everything. So I don't know. I don't know if that works out in the SEC. It's a cultural fit for sure. 100%. Not going to disagree with that. It's just like when you're breaking out finances, logistics, and everything else, I think that the Big Ten gets more value in Clemson than the SEC. I think they'll pursue them. North Carolina is a no-brainer for the SEC, 100%.
Moen, really quick, do you have a reply to that?
North Carolina State, Clemson, and UVA.
There you go.
North Carolina, UVA.
You've heard it here forever. If you didn't know that before, you know it again now. Ryan Willie, finally, with our last super chat of the night, at least that we've seen so far. Notre Dame thinks their crap doesn't stink. Well, everybody knows that. As a Wisconsin or any other fan, you would know that too. All right, guys, let's wrap this up. Moen, what are your final thoughts as we get out of here tonight?
The ACC is on life support, and it's just waiting for somebody to pull the plug.
Ute?
Yeah, so that settlement figure, guys, 294, get that stuck in your head, $294 million per school. That's what you want to remember from this video. It's going to be in that ballpark. Even give it a little room for error. Say it's 10 to 20% error rate, still over 200, like the 240 range or more. So, man, if Florida State and Clemson don't settle for that type of dollar amount, the ACC is in massive trouble of getting gobbled. And the remaining schools are getting taken out by the Big 12. That's really the big takeaway from this video. So the survival of the ACC sticks on that number, that $294 million number per school. Keep that in mind with all the conversations we have about court cases, lawsuits, settlement. Always think about that 294.
And last, I want to bump the Discord that we've got. Moen just poked the Discord link into the comment section. We appreciate everybody that's already joined our Discord. Want to invite everybody else to join Discord. Keep the conversation going. We've got moderators. If you like Discord and want to moderate, send me or Rockin' Rand or Moen or you a DM on Twitter and we'll talk. We're taking more and more people all the time, and come join our Discord and become more involved. It's not just our shows. It's everything else in the big, wider world of college football. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. It's been an amazing show. Again, tip of the hat to our best analytics guy and guru and good friend that we have here, and that's WildUte. Thank you so much, Ute, for all the hard work you put in. And follow us all on Twitter and be part of the conversation. We're going to keep it going. Tomorrow night, as always, I'll have to see what's going on in the news. There might be a show tomorrow night. There might not, but we will definitely let you know on Twitter, and we'll go from there. So for me, Ute, and Moen says done. I appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, for being here. What a great night. Watch those videos if you're new to the channel. If you're a new member, go and watch all of our videos that are in their short section, including the members-only ones we got right now. Other than that, everybody have a great night. Stay out of trouble. If you've been drinking, please do not drive. We'll see you later. Peace out, and okay from here.